Welcome back to yet another episode of your Re-Educated podcast. I had to quickly start because Naveen and I have been having such a nice conversation that I was like, we haven't been recording, but I'm glad to be here today to be talking to a good friend of mine, Naveen Shamsudhin. He is the co-founder of Kaleido, as well as the Institute of Body Movement. I wanted to write out a whole bio, but I thought I would just speak from the heart so I didn't have to read anything. But I met Naveen 2 years ago when we attended the Cortona conference in Italy that was about consciousness. And we had spent the whole week talking and spending time together, and I had absolutely fallen in love with the way that he lived, the way that he talked, his ideas. And we ended up keeping in touch. We did some work together, and then I ended up going to his conference that he hosts in Switzerland in the Alps, which is this entire season. And I'm so glad to be able to get the insights from the brain of the entire conference. And it was such an amazing time. And I'm so glad to have you here today. How are you?
Thanks, Gautam. Happy to be back on the podcast. Yeah, it
Yeah.
somehow feels very that we have just met, but at the same time, it feels like it's been years of knowing each other. I'm waking up, having my second coffee, and really ready to have a conversation and see where this flows.
Yeah.
I feel like my life. Usually, when people ask me how I am, I say, I feel like the ocean. There's something about the ocean that is mysterious, dark, but still stormy, windy, but still calm and peaceful, and there is depth to it. So I'm in all these states uh,
Yes.
many times of the day.
It's something that's so funny to me because the first time we had recorded a conversation, I remember being so taken aback because you were usually, how are you doing today? Everybody says the same, I'm good, I'm good. You were the first guest I'd had on who like gave a 20, like 30-second adjective filled description of I am today feeling resilient, something else, something else, something else. And I was like, this is such an interesting way to answer this question. And it's it's one of the most beautiful things I think about meeting people who are very, I don't, the word I'm looking for is like true to themselves, because
Mm.
people who are true to themselves are weird. Like you
Mm.
get to meet them and they act in ways that you don't normally expect. And at first you're a little taken aback, but as you
Mm.
get to know them more and more, you realize they're just being true to whatever it is that they believe in. And that expresses itself in ways that often don't fit into nice little boxes.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that is one of the way that you move about the world has like profoundly impacted me. And I'm so curious to know how many people it's allowed and empowered them to be slightly more loud in their own voices and in their own bodies. So
Mm.
I'm pretty sure we must have talked about this last conversation, but I would love to start there again because I think one of the things I really want to understand more about your origin story. I mean, how did you become this creative, free thinker who has these plans and designs and then puts them into action and actually executes on them? Where did all this start from?
Mm. Mm. Thank you, Gautam. Before I answer that question, I have to go back to the question, how are you? Because I think it's very important that we look at these three words. We use them daily. I don't know how many times with everyone, like, how are you? I'm good, I'm fine. And it's so automatic that you have to ask this question and automatically answered. It's so and we don't allow the question to touch ourselves. There is no moment of reflection, both in asking the question and answering it, and so this is a practice that I do in some of my sessions to really take time for that when someone asks, how are you? To really ask the question back to oneself, how am I? And then tune in and just check in and then develop kind of a vocabulary to really speak to and from this place of how am I? And, earlier I found myself diving in to break the cultural monotony of I'm good, it's okay, I'm fine. And we use sometimes fine even though we are fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Mm.
And so just allowing that honesty to oneself and communicating honestly from that place. So this took a while to change the culture that I held within myself, but also to use it as a catalyst to change the culture outside. And now I like to use metaphors that truly describe or is able to capture the complexity of what thrives inside, because I don't want to simplify myself to the most basic of shape or word or form, and to be open up to the formless. So metaphors and myths and new creative narratives just to express how am I, because that sparks the imagination outside to seeding something that can grow outside. Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, coming back to the question of what was that? The
How did you
creation
get here?
story.
How did you? Because
Yes.
we were just talking about this earlier of like compared to at least to speak for myself, my upbringing. Every year, as each year goes by, I get farther from where I was supposed to be. Where my
Mm,
ancestors would have ever thought, my great grandparents would have ever thought I was supposed to be. Every year, I'm getting farther and farther away from that. And
mm,
so it is really interesting to kind of ponder upon how did this even happen, and so the longer you live, especially if you keep going on some off-trodden path, it becomes more and more and more kind of distinct to you. And
mm,
so you were definitely one of those people that come to mind when I think about every aspect. You've tried something quite unique, and
mm.
it's so cool.
Yeah. So I strongly feel that I am where I am supposed to be.
Mm,
And I strongly feel that I am where my ancestors hoped I would be too.
mm,
And this might sound not so intuitive, but I think our ancestors really wanted us to step into our greatness, and be alive in our communities. And of course, the exact way how that looked like might have been different a long time ago. But I think if we live a life of authenticity, and I think if we deeply connect to our ancestry, really, it's a great source of power. And in this cycle breaking that some of us might need to do to come back to our own power. But one of the parts of this cycle is actually gaining that power from revisiting our ancestry. And so I do think I acknowledge my origins this way, and that will be the starting point, like what part of my ancestors still live through me?
mm,
You know, how does my grandmother speak through me? How does my grandfather speak through me? How does my culture speak through me? What part of my parents are still alive? And I always like images from nature, non-human etymologies, and about a great tree in a garden that is bountiful and gives fruit. A gardener, one who knows and communicates with this tree, has to constantly prune the tree. Pruning is very destructive. Essentially, you go and chop, 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 and the tree is like almost gone. So if you're like a beginner gardener, you are so afraid that you're gonna kill this tree. But that pruning is so necessary to bring the vitality back. So you are taking off or supporting its growth by taking off something, but then the vitality also builds back again. And this I learned this from permaculturists. And yeah, so how do you take care of your own tree? How do you prune it every year? Because the vitality is kind of stored inside, whether you can say in the DNA or like, it is there. Like you just need to take care of it to be reborn every year in spring so that you are bountiful. So if you want bounty every year, you need to take care to prune and connect back again. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think for me, a great source of power has been connecting to the ancestry and really seeing what part of my parents are alive, what part of my grandparents are alive, and what questions are they seeking answers to. Because I think that drive of theirs is still alive in us. And if we can tap into that, right, I think, yeah, it really creates that narrative psychologically, psychically, for us to kind of emerge with full power.
Wow.
Yeah,
Question. Because
yeah.
I want to connect this to my personal experience and I'm curious what you think. In the season where I was interviewing a lot of indigenous people, one thing I was absolutely enamored by was this concept of connecting with our ancestors and elders. And in this spiritual sense, it's not even in like I'm proving that, but there was this feeling that I am connected to the long bloodline that has existed before me. And in that I am connected to the past. But in a lot of what you're saying, I guess the part that has always been challenging for me is when my grandparents were around, when people in my family tree who were around didn't really approve of the way that I was leading my life or the things that I was doing. It's hard for me to be like, they don't, but the ancestors before them do. Because it was like whatever I've experienced in my family seems to not be accepting. So in some ways it feels mythical to be like, well, but everyone else who I didn't experience, they are though. How do you navigate that?
I think this brings us to kind of like, for me, the concept of shadow and shadow work. So a shadow is a part of us that we deny, that we suppress, that we don't express. We push it down. And this is a concept from Carl Jung, who was a Swiss depth psychologist. And now to come into our wholeness, and in wholeness, he talks about individuation. When we move the journey from moving from the ego to this larger self, individuation, which is stepping into authenticity, the authenticity cannot be complete, the wholesomeness cannot be complete until we work with our shadow. All the parts that we repress, put down, say that it is not us. Now, what triggers us the most about other people, and especially family members, is the parts that we have inside us. This is kind of a theory. So what triggers us about other people is something that we have inside ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge that it's a part of us.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the more, coming into wholeness for ourselves, the more we are able to accept that I too have that in me. What I see in the other, I too have that in me. And this is exactly why I pick it up. Like I pick it up, it amplifies so much. I'm so angry because I have that anger within me, or I have that shame that I see in the other person in me. Because someone else might not see that. Like if you have two siblings, one sibling has a one relationship to one parent, and bad a worse relationship. The relationships can be different to each parent, but it's the same parents. But then
Mm,
each of these siblings have a part that they disown, and they see it in the other, and it triggers the shit out of them.
mm,
So I think the challenge or the call here is to look at what of them is in us that we dislike, and then come to
mm,
accept that within us and not consider that as a flaw, but that it's part of being human.
mm.
And I had to do that to be able to accept myself more and my ancestors, starting with the parents, grandparents, and all those I did not know.
I am so excited for today's conversation. There's so much I feel. These conversations, I haven't podcasted in a long time. I started again today. It's been about a month. And I've been having these thoughts of like, what is the point of my life? Like, what am I doing? I've been feeling really meaningless the last couple weeks. The second I hit that record button, I can't tell you how every vein in my body feels like it's in the right place. Like, it actually has nothing to do with the record button, but there's some nice aspect of creation that only does exist after the record button is hit. Nor every conversation is a creation, but it ceases to exist after it's done. But there's something about hitting that record button, and it just puts me into this space where I'm like, I could do this forever. Like if my life was simply just recording interviewing every person on the planet, talking to them about their life, their wisdoms, what everything that has happened to them, and I could just walk around the planet person by person recording. I mean, I would be like, that is to me an amazing life. And so even just having this starting this conversation, I feel within me a sense of like I am meant to be here. That like I don't feel often unless I'm doing this or unless I'm teaching. Those are the only two times where I'm like, this is right. And so I feel happy, I guess, in some ways to not be in the eternal void of like, am I meaningless for like a few minutes, in this conversation. So one, I want to say thank you. And two, I want to say to the point that you were talking about earlier, a question I can hear some people in my mind asking me is like, what's the point? My mom was asking me that recently. She was like, you're learning about all this stuff, you're traveling the world, you're really asking these questions, but what's the point? What is, and I didn't know how to answer that. I don't know if I have a point. Like the questions seem like the point in itself to me. But I'm curious for you, if someone was to ask you, what is the point of it all? You learned about, you've like healed yourself in this way and you've done this work and that work and shadow work. Like, but why? What do you say?
Yeah. Before I go into that, I just want to talk about your aliveness that you just expressed right now. That when you hit record, this is when you are in the zone, when you feel that you could do this forever. One of the professors I really love the most is Joseph Campbell. So he was a professor for cross interreligiosity, or comparative literature, and he basically said, follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. What makes you come alive? And that's the advice that he gave to his students who came to sit in one of his class about ancient religions, or yeah. So I think keep doing what makes you come alive, and keep doing what creates bliss for you, because there, what happens there is a resonance. Let's use that word, where when you press the record button, you are resonating. There is something that is so alive, that is so much larger. So why do we need to contract? You know, why can't we exist in that state of being larger than who we are? Because there is a possibility to do that. And we know that from experience, right? Like our energy is contagious, whether it's our miserable energy or if it's our bliss energy. So, which do you want to transmit to others, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is the point of all this? Um, I think the point of life is to live. And to live is to be fully alive.
You hit it with the circular, you hit it with the circular the circular definition, huh?
But aliveness is not just life.
Mm.
Aliveness is creation. A lot of living things live a dead life,
Explain, yeah.
a state of contraction,
Mm.
a state of victimhood, a state of there is no point in this. They become nihilist. They close down, you know, and they lose hope. And the global planetary context right now, uh, yeah, does not help either. But I do think life wants to become alive,
Mm.
and aliveness is really resonating in creation. So
Mm.
creating is being alive. Creating is being bountiful.
Yeah.
Creative is a tree like blossoming and full of fruit. And how can we be that too? Because there is a possibility for that. And now we could like look at that and it's say like a lot of people feel guilt around this topic. When they are creating and creating and they look at others around them who might be stuck or who might be contracted, let's say, they're like, oh shit, I have the opportunity to kind of create while they don't. Oh, should I like tone myself back down? You know, I think this is something that I hear as well. But I think that creation or being alive is also a responsibility. It's a privilege. We notice we have the privilege to do what follow our bliss. At the same time, with that creation, we come to a responsibility. We need to become alive. We need to create. We need to create hope in the hopelessness. So I think that it becomes a responsibility as well to live a life of aliveness.
Mm. And so would you say a lot of your it's interesting because I 100% agree with so much of what you're saying. The challenge can sometimes be, I think, in if someone was to ask, like, it was funny. There was I heard through the grapevines, somebody I had known had said something along the lines of like, I don't know why Gautam spends all this time asking all these questions. Like, I might as well just make a lot of money and I'll just do all the work that he's doing in a couple days. Which it's a funny perspective, I think. And I'm not saying it's all wrong, and there's some validity to it, I guess. But the process itself of questioning, of following leads, of going somewhere you don't know what really is going to happen, and learning from that, sometimes that feels like you don't create for something. There's no like I create this so something else can happen, and that something else is the meaning. Sometimes the creation itself is it. Like there is nothing more I want to come out of this conversation or this than the conversation itself. Like the entirety of this product that we're creating is all that I need.
Mhm.
But that seems to like
To
really
come alive,
contrast.
to
Yeah,
come alive for you.
that is the goal. And it seems that contrasts a lot with like a more capitalist mode of thinking where it's like everything is a means to an end, and that end is usually making money somehow or another. And so I
Mhm.
feel like when you're typically in that thought process, so somebody yesterday, a parent had just asked me, he was like, "So what are your thoughts on AI? Like, do my kids even need to learn how to write?" And I had told him that if you believe that the only reason people write is to somehow like communicate something for someone else's sake effectively, then I think you've missed the most profound aspect of writing, which is for the self. If you're not writing for yourself, you might as well just not write it anyway. I mean, you're just writing it for some assignment, you're writing for someone. It's not even the point. But the act of writing itself can be so therapeutic to the self, whether it's you digesting your own ideas, thinking through something, having to have that constant dialogue with yourself, whether it's the ability for yourself to feel heard for the first time when no one else, to feel seen from writing something, to be able to reflect back on it when you're going through hard. That is the power of writing. It has not, the AI can't do that for you. It might write it and fix the grammar and stuff, but it will not provide you that sense of, I have created something and I now feel seen. And that is something AI will never be able to do. And so I think I was, but I'm not sure everyone views creation in that way. A lot of people view creation as just like we do this to get something done. I don't,
Mhm. Mhm.
why
I
do you
mean,
think that happens?
the feeling of coming alive, how you feel that about a podcast, creating the next episode or having the next conversation, that feeling of coming alive might be different for a different person.
100%.
A person creating the latest code for the AI virtual agent can be so excited and come alive in that moment of creation, fully in flow, right? So, how we resonate and come alive is just different for different people. And I think when we accept the artist within us, and artist is a name, it is a container of expression, it is a way of being, it is an archetype of creation, of sensitivity, being sensitive, of being curious. A scientist might have part of that curiosity and creation as well. But there is something about the artist archetype that can hold this aliveness. And the world needs artists to show them what more is possible. How can we create hope through alchemizing their own pain through writing? How can we create hope through writing? How can our poetry inspire a revolution for a nation, right? And so through this inner dialogue and alchemy, if we come to become aware that it can catalyze phenomenal change for others around us, then I think we can it invites us to step into our power of creation. Like, do not be afraid of creating,
Mhm.
right? Keep doing these conversations and podcasts. The problem in the capitalistic society is that we need to quantify everything to justify doing it. Is this making money? Does this have a scientific, does this lead to publications? And through these metrics, we are formed. So if you don't go up in this metric, a particular society or subculture will not accept you. But I am inviting all of us to step into our multidimensionality, that we can work on different metrics, or people want to put a metric on us, like Gautam, like, are you a great podcaster? I'm gonna count the number of episodes and the listening minutes and stuff like that. That is just one metric that the outside needs from you, but you are more than that. You're more than the number of characters you have written in 1 hour. Like, the metrics can help us to frame ourselves within a certain context, but we are more than the metric, and we are more than one character role that we take on. And we can, I think, with great awareness, step between these different possibilities or dimensions. Like, I can step into the artist, then I can step into being a great model or example of a brother, or I can be a good partner, then step back into, I have a role in society. Then I can step into the role of the artist, where I'm creating for myself, but also with, I do feel that the planetary crisis invites more artists to not dissociate into a certain creation for their own meaning finding, but then again take that and be of service to the world.
Hmm.
I think because the world needs that.
Hmm. Can I just
So
say something that came to mind real quick?
hmm?
I just want to say one thing that came to mind real quick
Yeah.
when you were I I sometimes don't I have a hard time giving myself credit or really just appreciating, the effort that I've put into my life and the things and the things that I've created because I feel like I don't make a lot of money, but I did a mural for my elementary school and it's a big one.
Mhm.
And I just, when you were speaking, I just had like a flash of just like thinking about maybe if they don't repaint it, which hopefully they don't anytime soon, being able to walk by it and be like, you know what? That was 2 weeks of my time that I poured a lot of effort into to making the connections to being able to actually get that done that just like exists there. It's like a thing that I've done that now like will exist in the world. I don't know for how long, but it's there's something just so beautiful about that. And I wanted this word artist you used always to me for the longest time felt like something that was out of reach. I was like, I'm not a great painter, not the best poet, can't write that well. I'm okay at writing. I can't sing too well, but I do all of those things. I mean, I dance, I sing. I'm not phenomenal at any of those things, but as of late, I'm realizing that an artist is not like someone who gets paid to do art. Everyone has that creative spirit and soul within
Mhm.
themselves.
Yes.
And that creativity manifests in all types of ways. I mean, it could even be like how your room is set up, to like how you pack up your bags before leaving, to the types of things that you designed on your website or whatever it is. It shows up in so many ways. And it is a part of everyone and cultivating that and not to be like I think this is so sad when people are like a musician or a singer is someone who sings well and gets paid to do it or a dancer is someone who dances professionally. Like we are all of these things and we can cultivate and kind of nourish each parts of those selves, which I feel like is what you're saying, where you don't have to just be a brother or just a parent or just a politician or an engineer. You can be them all. And they're all just different parts of yourself. I am a doctor. I am a lawyer. I am all of those things. I just get to choose which ones I pour water into, but
Mhm.
it is not something outside of me.
So exactly. So I think you are tapping into now that potential for creation, creativity, and aliveness there. That's the connection. We
Mm,
can be all, we are a garden. We are a garden, and a garden has abundance, has the potential for abundance. We can choose what seeds to put in our garden. Our garden needs to be taken care of. And our garden is going to bring yield in a technical way, but also it's just going to bring beauty. And that beauty is so much necessary right now. So there is like fruits that like has like a, quantitative, but also like it's eatable and stuff like that. But just being beautiful has such an effect on people and whole systems and the whole ecology as well. It invites, I remember when I started to garden or to take interest in non-human matters, I just put this small basilicum basil plant outside my window, and a few months later it started to flower. So if you don't like break the nib off to put in your food, it starts to flower. And this basil plant and this flower was an invitation for some butterflies to come. So this looked beautiful to others who were like outside and saw the balcony, these flowers, but it's also, the flower is an invitation. Our beauty is an invitation for the ecology to come in and participate with us, which we usually don't participate with. So creating this beauty and having these flowers are inviting the ecosystem to take part in a relationship with us. And
Wow.
that has value in itself.
Hmm.
And to come to this understanding and deprogram myself out of the myth, the cultural myth that we have to be productive, we have to be efficient, we have to be make money, like kind of these are the metrics. And to say that we can be an amplifier of beauty as
Hmm.
well.
100%. I mean, it's so fascinating because even as you talk, it's so interesting to me that you have had a past where you were in academia. You have so many publications. I mean, you have done the whole thing. I mean, you've done the path and you've done things that you're supposed to do, and you've also ventured out and created your own things. I mean, I really want to talk about Kaleido a little bit because I was telling you earlier how there's some creations where I experience sometimes, and I'm like, this to me makes me feel like your life was worth it to such a high degree that even if you were to die tomorrow, like this product, this one thing you created would be enough to be like your existence was seen in such a profound way that it feels like it leaves a mark on the, I don't know, the etches of humanity forever. And Kaleido felt like that. It was this conglomeration of people from all over the world who came together for a few days in the beautiful Swiss Alps to talk about peace and liberation. It was one of the most challenging weeks I've had. I mean, the number of emotional ups and downs I had in those 4 days are too many to even count. I'm
Mm,
exhausted even thinking about it. But it
mm,
was a challenge that was very much needed and a space that created to allow these feelings to even occur. It wasn't something I just went and had a fun time and I partied and it was great. It wasn't like that at all. I
mm,
mean, there were parts of it that were like that, but I mean, so much of it was this like deep internal journey of like, what am I doing on this planet? I'm going to die soon. What am I doing? What is the point of all of this? And it was a space where a lot of people who approached these questions from different aspects, from all different age groups, were able to come together and share their perspectives. And you understood how much you could learn from the youth. You understood how much you could learn from the people in their 70s and 80s and every profession of dancers. I mean, it was that type of diversity is so rare to ever come across. But when you experience that a single time, it leaves something within you that can never be taken away. That open-mindedness that comes from being in a room where you're like, wow, everyone has something so beautiful to offer.
mm,
It can never be gone. And I just want to say one last thing because I said this on when I did an episode just about the conference itself. When you leave the intellectual and you come to a very human place, everyone is equal.
mm,
It does not matter how intelligent you are, how many things you know. We all equally have no idea what happens when we die. We all have no idea what's going to happen in the next 100, 200, 500 years. We all are equally confused and lost.
mm,
And most conferences stick at the intellectual level. All right, we're going to go talk about the economics. We're going to go talk about the economy. And everybody just shows up with their little ID. I am an economist. I am a PhD. So you only really interact with them through that medium. And in that medium, I am a dummy. but other people are not. And
Mm,
so there is a clear hierarchy of who has something to say and who doesn't. But you but Kaleido, while you have an intellectual component to it, you also have this life component to it, where there is a space to dance. You might be really intelligent, but you might not be able to dance. Or
mm,
there's a place to sing, there's a place to draw and paint, there's a place to be a person. And all of a sudden, everyone is intelligent in something. And all the education work I do, Kaleido is the kind of centerpiece for what I think about all the time of everyone is intelligent. You just have to find how, not if. And I think for you to have created that space over, I think this was the seventh year, is that correct? I mean,
yes.
it's truly amazing work, first of all. Thank you for all that effort and energy. I know not too much money really came out of it, but the impact for every person who went to something like that is so seen and embodied that there is no money that could like prove that happened, So one, thank you. And
Mm,
two, yeah, I mean, yeah, let me start there. Thank you.
thank you. I received that. And it's beautifully articulated how you felt, what you observed, and what your feelings are after, 4 months after. Yeah, and it's beautiful to hear that from you. And oftentimes I forget why I do this. What's the point of all this? But these stories, these memories, these embodied experiences that are alive in others remind me back again who I am and why I'm doing it.
Mm,
And it doesn't get stored in a metric.
it cannot. It can't.
Yeah.
It would
And
belittle it
like 30
completely.
countries, people came from 30 countries. There were X amount, gender ratio, the age distribution. That is such a small subset and labeling of the entirety of the experience or the imprints that the seeds that we carry from there. So I
Got it.
struggled a lot with defining Kaleido, with framing Kaleido, with talking about Kaleido, to write a budget for Kaleido because I have to apply for funding and stuff like that. Because each time I try to do it, I'm like, this is more than that. And I don't want to reduce it to this. And it's only this year I have been also internally able to accept the multidimensionality of Kaleido. For some people, Kaleido is a community. I feel that it's almost like a village. And in a village, there are elders, there are the young ones, there are the crazy ones, there are the shamans, there are the healers, there are the defenders, there are the guests, there are stories from the old, there are skeletons in our closet, there is celebration, there is rituals. It is a temporary village that comes together. Or it is a garden of all these different beautiful creatures and plants, which could be different disciplines, practices, dance, but we have neuroscience too. We talk about politics, we talk about economics, and it is a garden in that sense, and it's beautiful to step into it because most of our lives are in deserts. Even though they might be filled with a lot of bling bling that captures our attention, it disconnects us from who we are. So in this age of connection, we are extremely disconnected. And I think my mission is both to catalyze our creativity, which is the possibility for more of aliveness to come out from us, and at the same time to connect us back to our body, to the body of the earth, and to other bodies like you and me and others. And it's just so multidimensional. And so that's it. And, you know, my mom asked me for a few years, why do you do this? Like, you don't make any money out of it. Like, she's like, how much can you live from it? I'm like, Mom, no. And I remember the shame I felt because I could not, make a living out of it. But in the sixth year of Kaleido, I was able to bring her and my dad to Kaleido and let them experience this container. They
Mm.
were there for 5 days with me and experiencing what I created. We never spoke during, but I know they understood what it is that I am, what it is that I create. And so I had to do the ancestral work by bringing them into my field of creation and let them experience it along with the others in there. So the whole thing spoke for itself. They experienced beautiful things, and they don't ask me the question anymore about money. Even though they might have this question, like how is he gonna make a living? But they know that Naveen is in bliss or is feeling alive, and a lot of people are impacted. So yeah. So I think bridging narratives, and this is the ancestral work, or bridging narratives between different fields. There is a threshold that you need to cross for you, and for different people, that threshold, that activation energy to go beyond their frames of mind and understanding is difficult. So you need a catalyst to do that. A catalyst can be a person, it can be an event or experience. And then you can build those bridges. And that bridge is creating connection from the disconnected worlds that we live in.
Mhm. So what do you kind of see to be the future of Kaleido in the craziest dreams in 10 years from now? What would you like it to be?
I would love for this experience and format to be in more places and more times of the year. And let me be even wild. I can imagine going from one Kaleido in a different country to the next. Kaleidoing, passing through, yeah, and experiencing that aliveness, that creativity, and meeting people there who are alive as well, and who are like, we can generate hope. We believe in coming together and working through, and finding our humaneness. Because to answer those deep existential questions, we need others as well. And our
Mm,
inquiry has to be based, it's a collective inquiry.
wow. I mean, what comes to mind immediately is just a sadness in one way of I think about a lot of the other educational conferences I went to. And this is actually what Alex said the previous episode, which I thought was just so beautiful the way she had laid it out. She was like, one of the best metrics you can know how really about a mission an organization is to just see how they treat the people within their organization, or how is it that they treat each other. And if you're this organization that talks about equitable education and how you want access but then within your organization itself there's a very clear hierarchy. Some people feel really bad about their work, and it's like all that you're preaching is just something you're just saying out there. You're not actually living it. And so a lot of these conferences that talk about all these great ideals for education, in the way that conference is structured itself, you can see the clear problems. The problems that existed out in the world exist here. And the people are fine perpetuating it because they get some benefit from it, or they feel good about themselves that they sit on like a highly pedestalized seat and talking about their issue, and everyone else takes notes and listens to them. It's like we didn't really have that at Kaleido. There wasn't any really some sort of like social hierarchy of those who are supreme and those who aren't. And I think it comes back to this idea of a village. I mean, typical conferences aren't looked at as villages where you get to come and exist in your own skin. So, where did this idea come from? And what are some of the like if someone wants to start something like this, where do they begin?
I think I think the point is not about replication, not about photocopying.
Mm, that would miss
So
the point.
yeah, yes. You know, like if I take a seed of, let's say, rice. Rice is a grain, it's a seed. And if we were to plant it in another georegion, it's not going to be as bountiful. It's not going to be resistant. It's going to have fewer grains, and maybe it might not even grow. The conditions are not fertile enough for this quality to emerge. But then you throw 1,000 seeds. You don't plant just a seed of rice, you plant 1,000. And then a few will be bountiful. You know, a few will have that qualities which let them adapt to the local environment and they will thrive. So I like this quality of experimentation. So take what is alive in you from your experience and then work with that. And of
Mm,
course, we can learn from what has worked before. We can learn from the stories of others. We can learn from the experiences of others. We do not have to recreate the wheel. But then there is something about being embedded deeply in the local context and receiving signals from it and saying, how can I marry this and that, and how can I put it together and create a new alloy that has properties of this and that, but it's stronger and maybe more beautiful. So life is constantly doing permutations and combinations and mutations and evolving, and cosmic rays are creating change. So this is creation, is this mishmash, mutation, evolution, cutting some pruning stuff, and there's a constant like a noise in there. We have this, I forgot the name for the technical parts of the DNA, which are like junk. Perhaps that junk, that noise is necessary because that is so the background of what everything else is built upon, because that's like local. And yeah, so
mm,
there are many invisibles in a project that others outside the project might not see, and also there are invisibles that the people within don't see, the kind of like unknown number of unknowns. And yeah, just to embrace it and know that it is there in a complex system.
I really like this idea of the moment you try to replicate what you already see, you kind of sometimes lost the juice itself because the whole point is it is very unique to that particular context and situation. And so what you need to do is really get deeply soaked into what it is that your values are, your principles. What are you looking to do? How do you put a team around you that cares about similar principles? And then how do you then go? And all the logistical things, maybe that can be discussed. But this like ethos that has to then be like strongly created so that it can, the motivation to even build it gets created, that can't be copied. Is
Mm.
that what that's what I'm hearing you say?
Mm. And I'm also like thinking about like, I'm not a musician, but recently I'm like, how do I create music? And this whole idea of sampling, the hip hop culture and stuff like that. How do you go back into the past? Tune in to some parts that you like, sample, bring that into the present world, and you still honor that, but you still add your juice in it, mix it up, And then you have this
Mm.
wonderful creation. So I think that creativity is endless. There is no formula. And the past is rich, the present is rich, and the future will is rich.
Mm.
How do we want to contribute to this richness?
The one of the last questions I'll leave you off in. It's a thing we talked about in the previous episode, but it was about rest.
Mm,
Creation can be exhausting sometimes,
mm,
a lot of the times.
mm.
And resting seems to be a very important part to be sustainable over a long period of time. What are some things that you have learned about yourself in this process, figuring out when you have energy, when you have the space, when you don't? And have you developed ways of rest that work for you?
So rest is something that everything that is alive needs. You know, other creatures other than humans go into hibernation, go into periods of weak growth, even like they might calcify and just like, I don't want to interact with any signal from outside. And I'm just gonna go into like a deep state of rest. And our capitalistic society that is ever on is creating a culture or has already created a culture where the machine metaphor has been applied to our bodies. A machine is on. And you know, if there's a problem, you repair it and immediately you are back on. You just keep oiling it and like, you know, fixing it, bandaging it, but you are constantly called to produce. And plants or an apple tree or any other fruit giving tree, there are years where they are not as bountiful as the year before. So they have like a less number of
Mm.
fruits one year after giving a lot of fruits, and that is nature. So we have moved away from the cycles of nature, which are nonlinear, to a constant or even like an increasing demand on productivity. So an increasing demand to be ever more efficient. And I think we first need to unlock ourselves from that myth of constant production. And I think we fall back in, even if we fall out from the mainstream creation, we fall back into hustle culture where still need to keep creating here and here. And yeah, so I think there is a lot of mindset shifts that need to take place, and also body shifts to come back into rest and change. Yeah, we just need to rest to learn to rest. And I remember 2 years ago something very, very interesting. I went into the forest. A
I remember the story.
forest is the place for rest.
Mm.
And I experienced something where I went into a deeper state of rest. I was invited by the facilitator to really find a spot and just be there for an hour. And there, I just experienced this, I just dropped into a new state of rest that I never went into. And it was just like, oh my God, what is happening at this state? I have a different sense of awareness. I am still aware, but I'm deeply relaxed. I am deeply relaxed. What is that? My nervous system is not like buzzing to react to the input. The forest is still alive. It's still buzzing. But my body and mind has just dropped into a new state of realization that is even deeper than what I've experienced before. And I was like, oh my God, this is possible. that state. It's just like an atom and energy levels, and you never know. Some states were not possible, but it's possible to get into that. So I think a rest also needs practice.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to get into that non-linearity, to get into the cycles of the planet, for Earth, of life, we need more rest. Rest will be non-linear. We need to know to take care of ourselves. And this is active. Rest is active. We need to act to rest. And the rest is action, because internal action, rest is like fasting. Like there's a lot going on inside.
This is
So,
definitely a new space that I think I've been called to understand more for myself of how do I, while I keep creating and making all these things, also take the time to just stop. And I
mm,
think I used to think rest was just being unproductive.
mm,
And any time that you're unproductive, you're resting. But it has become so clear to me that that is not the case. Like rest is not just not doing anything. You have to, like you said, it is an action. You have to actually be quite active about how you rest. Because if I'm just watching some TV that like makes me feel bad, that's not resting. I end up leaving that feeling worse than I did going in. Like it is being active about the things that I'm consuming in that space and what am I listening to? How am I feeling? Really taking into account into all those small things. So I'm not.
and remember, this action of yours, if amplified and multiplied by others, are going to have a serious impact on the economy.
Mm,
And this is exactly why it is not incentivized to take rest, because the economy would go out of the current state into another state, and this is too dangerous. We cannot have too many people taking rest. So this constant on is what has damaged the planet. Constant extraction of resources from the planet to produce unnecessary things for consumption. So it's a constant loop that never stops but just increases. So it has a serious political impact, cultural impact, and we just need to step up more and create this new culture.
So I'm excited. I mean, if people want to learn more about the Kaleido Conference, where can they find the information?
So next year, 2025, will be the 8th edition, and it will be in Switzerland in a beautiful location in the Alps from the 20th to 24th August. And more information at www.kaleido, as in kaleidoscope, .community. So kaleido.community.
Nice. I'm very excited. I will try my best to be there. I think I'll be flying back to the States around that time, but I will try. This was once in a just such an amazing experience this year, and I'm very excited to be a larger part of the community moving forward. But I want to thank you for being on the show today. This was a lovely conversation, and maybe the next time we talk in a year, 2 years from now, it'll be nice to have this. It'll be crazy. I mean, if we can both stay around alive for a couple more decades, and if we do this every few years, we might have, 7 or 8 episodes over the few
Wow.
decades. It'd be really cool.
I'm excited by that idea.
Yeah.
And yes, not just staying around alive, but living our life in
Yeah.
aliveness.
Living. Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal. Yes. Well, thank you, Naveen.
Thank you, Gautam.
And that brings us to the end of our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you again for listening and making this process so much more enjoyable. If you haven't had the chance to already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts to get the latest updates on new episodes. If you've been learning useful information here, feel free to leave a review as well. A little bit goes a long way in spreading this podcast. And have a wonderful day. And as per usual, stay re-educated.